Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'd like to begin with a question. For decades, we've been told that politics is a battle between the left and the right. It's liberals versus conservatives, progressives versus traditionalists, government versus markets. And those debates matter. But I wonder whether we've been asking the wrong question. What if some of the biggest stories in our politics aren't best explained by left versus right at all? What if they're better explained by something much older? Up versus down. Power, influence, who writes the rules and who lives under them, who benefits, who pays. Take almost any major issue: healthcare, housing, banking, technology, education, taxes. You can certainly debate all of those issues through an ideological lens. But you can also ask a different question. Who has the leverage? Who doesn't? Who has resources to shape the outcomes, and who has to live with the consequences? That doesn't mean that every issue is about power. Some genuinely are ideological, and some are matters of principle. Some are questions of economics, and others are questions of culture. And the point of this show isn't to pretend every problem has the same explanation. It's to ask whether we're looking through the right lens before we start arguing even. So each episode, we're going to begin the same way. We're going to examine the evidence, we'll compare the facts, we'll ask difficult questions, and then we'll tackle one final question together. Is this really left versus right, or is it up versus down? Welcome. If you wish to get in on the conversation, I'm going to go ahead and put a link right there in the chat. Whether you agree or disagree, feel free to join. Good morning to you, Metal. I agree, it definitely is a class war. I think for too long, the people at the top have benefited from being able to play the left and the right against each other. Now, there certainly are ideological differences between the two parties, but it's not like it isn't exacerbated for an obvious purpose. Feel free to join the chat if you're out there watching. I don't know, I mean, like, think about it. In all the different ways, going all the way to the media, the division has put so much money in so many pockets. I mean, all the way from news stations needing to make their revenue to people, you know, taking super chats on internet shows. Metal is truth. Conservatism has been the way of life since I was born. Conservatism meant that you were going to be wealthy. Well, that's also when that whole idea of the prosperity gospel comes in. And, I mean, I've heard about everybody gets a mansion and the streets are paved in gold and the pearly gates. It's like all boiled down to life sucks here on earth because you're poor, but while you're poor you're gonna blame it on everything, but your reward at the end is you finally get wealth. And that's what literally everybody is like, okay, so if I behave for Sky Daddy, I'm gonna get wealth in the end. I mean, I know it's a terribly reductive view when it comes to that, but I'm trying to find the loophole in my logic. If you're out there watching, feel free to click the meet link and come join the conversation, whether you agree or disagree. I think this is the conversation that we can all benefit from, because when it really boils down to it, we do have more in common than we have things that set us apart. Now, like I said, every ideology has things that I suppose are a litmus test for the other side of the aisle as far as what they consider extremism goes. But I think for the most part, everybody just wants to be left the hell alone and be able to not go broke because of a medical bill. Yeah, I agree. We do have more in common than we think. Metal, that is a great observation. We're told constantly that we don't. I mean, nobody's born racist. You know, you have to be fed a giant crock of shit in order to, I don't know, even consider that to be a way that you think, because until somebody tells you that people are different, all you know is that this person isn't trying to physically attack me. I have no reason to to have something against them. Exactly, Metal. All you know is the brown people are bad. Well, brown or black. It's, you know, interchange, you know, whatever is the target du jour. Space Duster says, I've been wronged by more people who look like me than don't. I mean, I completely agree. You know, growing up in central Ohio, diversity is not exactly what the population is made of, and everybody kind of keeps to themselves, but yet somehow they ended up being a blight upon the community. I'll never understand it. If you want to get in on the chat, feel free. Just click the link right there in the chat box. Whether you agree or disagree, feel free to come up and speak your mind. So my last recent episode of I Hate Roy Cohn and So Should You, we went ahead and measured the idea that reality only happens once, and then through illusory truth, which is a psychological term for repeating something until it becomes true, we took a look at how it's important to find the original source material and, you know, do things like read transcripts, open documents. Oh yeah, Metal, you have been to the center of Ohio. You can validate that claim. That's correct. You've actually been there. Oh yeah, did you visit the the Living Bible Museum while you were there? I know you went to the metal show at the prison, at the Bible walk. My electricity teacher, actually, he wired that up. He's a religious man, good man, but religious man. He had no tolerance for my shenanigans. And yeah, I was at the Godsmack filming of Awake at the Mansfield Reformatory, actually. We got like $76 and some corn chips and some slices of pizza, but we could totally smell like the lobster coming from Godsmack's room. And we had to like mosh around in the cold and the rain for like 12 hours. Excuse me, for like 12 hours. And the first 6 were for the general crowd, and then they were like, if you want to have the chance of a close-up, stick around for the next 6. And I'd already called off work so I can go do that with my friends, because I knew that it'd be a fun story later in life, as I have a few of those. And so the cage was around Godsmack, and they're like pantomiming, doing their thing. And you take a bunch of repressed Ohio, like mid-Ohio people, and give them like metal and tell them that you want them to behave in an unruly fashion, you're really setting yourself up, because when they said action, we were all supposed to rush the cage and then mosh around it. And you can see where I'm in the video, because I have like long black hair down to here, and you can see my white undershirt because we had to wear like blue long sleeve shirts with like white undershirts. And I was like, I have an idea. And I tied my blue undershirt, my blue long sleeve shirt around my waist so my white undershirt would pop, so you can always see me in the video. And there's a couple times where I'm very, very apparent. Anyway, so these basically hyped up mid-Ohio kids are told to behave as raucous as possible when they say action, because they expect us to get to the cage and then mosh around the cage. No. As soon as they said action, there was a dude who ran and took a flying fucking leap onto the cage. It was like holding onto it and shaking it and screaming. And the director had to yell cut because he was afraid like all these fake amplifiers that were like attached to the cage were like gonna fall down on the Godsmack's head. Once more, if you're out there and enjoying the conversation and wish to join in, there is the topic at hand. It's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Do you agree or do you disagree? Feel free to click the link in the chat box. Metal is truth. Bone Spurs announces nationwide ban on non-billionaires. But if they do that, who's going to give them their treats? Yeah, right there at the reformatory. It's the same place they did Air Force One. When you walk into this one area, you know, they still have like the Russian gate up and stuff. And in the mess hall, there's still like the paintings of Stalin. And they did Tango and Cash there. And Marilyn Manson did The Beautiful People there, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously Shawshank Redemption. Metal is truth, no one would be in the White House Coliseum for the fights. Yeah, you'd have to get like Lindsey Graham versus James Walkinshaw. It'd be like, let's see here, Chuck Schumer versus Chuck Grassley. Polymarket would love that one, I'm sure. If you'd like to join the conversation, feel free to click the link in the chat box. Glitch McConnell versus AI. Well, AI would obviously win because it freezes up a whole lot less. Okay, here's the question. Does the AI get a cooling fan? So Jubilee is normally complete rage bait with their Surrounded show, but their newest show they have called Split, pretty good concept. I like it. And also, there's no yelling over each other. It's really nice, but it really gives the viewer both sides completely unfiltered. It's a really good, really good idea for show because it encourages conversation, because each side gets to point out flaws from the other side, and they have to either defend it or disown it. And it's just a really good a really good concept. Metal Jubilee turned you away. What did you apply to be a debater on that show? It's so nice to be able to do other projects other than study for my test that I had to take, and now that that's over with. See here, I finished Peach Bones. I'm currently working on another book. I'm very excited about this series. I'm not going to tell anybody anything about it. I want it to be a complete surprise. I just know that you're going to like it. If you enjoyed Peach Bones and that style of, I like to call it popcorn writing, where it actually feels like you're reading a movie, then I think you're gonna enjoy it. Oh, okay. Metal says he did not. He just couldn't stand the yelling over each other, like you were stating. Yeah, that whole rage bait situation, I got to be a little old, but this show it's a really great concept because nobody yells over each other, which is really nice and completely, I don't know, welcomed, encouraged. I found it to be fairly therapeutic compared to watching Surrounded, at least. Because they're both able to joke around with each other and whatnot. It wasn't just a series of trying to get as many gotchas as you can to get, you know, your internet clips. I don't know. It's like watching WWE, but you know, you can say that you're an intellectual because it's a debate as opposed to drop kicks. If you're out there watching, feel free to click on the link in the chat if you want to come in and have a conversation. Yo, Tiki Tony, what's happening? Whether you agree or disagree, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. If you want to chat, feel free to click the link and join. And when I do mean up versus down, I do mean using our tax dollars for vanity projects to line the pockets of those, let's go ahead and call them above average earners. The fucking rich people. There you go. Like, let's go ahead and remove all pretense. Metalist Truth says no one will be as knowledgeable on WWE than Jason Selvig from The Good Liars. Up until fairly recently, I mean, I watched wrestling since I was a kid. My stepdad even took me to King of the Ring. When I was a kid, fucking Luke from the Bushwhackers licked my head. It was the high point of my life at that time. But then, you know, it just, once you figured out the play where it's heel versus face, and then they have the rivalry, and, you know, it always, you know, used to be like, because they want the belt. That there you go. You know, they want them to, you know, drop the strap and them to take over as champion, be they face or heel. But when it started getting to where it was like just the ridiculous storylines that Vince Russo was creating, I was like, okay, dude, I'm fucking out. Because it'd be like ridiculous storyline, like heel versus face, and then this thing happened where they got a rivalry, but then this more insane thing happened, and this more, and then like they'll, you know, the face will be in like a regular smash match, and then like all of a sudden the heel will come in and pull them off when the cover's on there, and you like, it becomes very, very predictable, and it all is to cycle around to be able to sell the pay-per-view, whether it's Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell, or WrestleMania. Oh, that's awesome. Metalist Truth says that Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes stole his folding chair. Dusty Rhodes stole my folding chair. If you just join us, feel free to click the link in the chat box if you want to join the conversation. And whether you agree or disagree that it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. All about the greed of the wealthy. Dude, you want to talk about someone, dude, Vince McMahon, Vinnie Mac? Dude, money hand over fist. But then, you know, remember what happened when Jesse Ventura tried to unionize and Hulk Hogan, like, ratted him out? Metalist Truth, that dude. Who, Hulk Hogan or Jesse Ventura? Hulk Hogan was like one of the biggest disappointments in life. It was like when you found out Santa Claus wasn't real or the Tooth Fairy. When you're like, oh, actually, Terry Bollea is a horrible, horrible person. And I really wish I didn't play with his action figures as a child. Or like, enjoyed watching Suburban Commando or Mr. Nanny. Or that part in Gremlins 2 where like he shows up and like tears his shirt off and starts yelling at the gremlins. Yeah, I agree, Metal. Vince McMahon is trash. And and it's so funny because the attitude that he has shares a lot in common with Bone Spurs, where they're both ridiculously wealthy, but for some reason they're like the victim of everything at all times. Anytime that something comes up, it's not like, their own doing. Instead, it's actually, everybody else's fault. It's everybody else's fault he has so much money. Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Well, it's pretty well known within wrestling that he murked a woman in a hotel room. I'm not sure if he full on murked her or if he just like really came close to it. I forget. But yeah. A lot of those cats that you thought were somebody in the ring, and once they get out of the ring, they're somebody completely different. Apparently it was the same way with the British Bulldog. Like everybody loved him as a babyface in the ring, but like he had really bad addiction issues. Like if you watch that match where he was with Bret Hart, where he won the title, like you can see Bret Hart work the entire match. He's the one who made him look good. Like he really sold everything and, really, did the work when it came to that match. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to click the link in the chat box. It's not it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Whether you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear your opinions. Metal is truth, Roy Cohn was the pivot man and the circle jerk that is the wealthy class. Yeah, also mobsters too. Like he's a mobster lawyer. Look at the position that Roy Cohn's father held. He's in the Supreme Court. So, he had the legal training since he was a kid, but he had the natural inclination to always play victim. Because he is, grown up as a spoiled mama's boy. But unfortunately, that mentality then soaked into Bone Spurs, and then he soaked that into Fox News, and then that soaked into a whole mess of population who the wealthy are able to control because they know that as long as they keep it left versus right, not up versus down, they're going to keep making money from division. Oh, you didn't know that about Snuka? Yeah, it's sort of wrestling canon. But then again, I don't I don't expect everybody to have in-depth WWE knowledge. Tiki Tony, the down, figured out the economy sucks. No one went to the 250th. The down figured out the economy sucks. Is that supposed to be the Dow? Anyway, yeah, the 250th was sad. Did you see the only ride they had was a Ferris wheel that kept breaking, and then like all of the ice cream melted? Like, it was just a clusterfuck. It was just a complete representation of how the wealthy elites have no idea how to communicate with normal people and do things that, you know, we find to be your basic step when you're setting up a state fair, such as ensuring that the power doesn't go out. It is so hot. We are having like record heat here in Germany. Space Duster, I'm kind of enjoying the lack of return on MAGA's investment. Well, bigotry is expensive. I just hope that Europe will see what happens when you use this mentality to govern and cater all of your policies to the, you know, strictly the wealthy, while still selling populism. Luckily, populism has a really hard time being able to back up a lot of their claims with actual evidence or facts or receipts. So we've learned that the wealthy have made it so there's a certain percentage of the population who believes that if you tell them facts that it's an attack on them personally. So, the best way to conduct these conversations is to simply ask for evidence. And when a 10-minute filibuster appears, just simply wait and repeat. Eventually, you'll either get evidence or whoever you're talking to will probably crash out. If you want to be 100% honest. Metal is truth, exactly right. Having these celebrations for 250 is the division we need right now. Fuck the wealthy. Yeah, I think that, also, you know, the more conversations we can have pointing out, have any of these policies made your life better in any way? So, I mean, that's a very honest question to ask. Because I can't think of a single metric that has been better under an administration that caters to the wealthy strictly. If you want to join the conversation, whether you agree or disagree with the premise that it's not left versus right, it's up versus down, feel free to click the link. The best part is that all of all of the like C-list celebrities even said no, this is a circle jerk for the wealthy. You actually don't care about America's 250. Otherwise, Iran would have just gotten 400 billion. There's still people trying to justify that too. I'll never understand that. When the millionaires defend the billionaires. Black Dragon, happy Sin Day, Skip and chat. Welcome, Black Dragon. If you wish to join the conversation, feel free to click the link right there in the chat box. Okay. Metal is truth. You're never going to see the wealthy out and about in this heat with the peasants. Oh, no. It's their job to be served their treats while they stay in the air conditioning. And Tiki Tony said even vanilla ice taco. That's hilarious because, I mean, like, you gotta, like, the thing about vanilla ice is you gotta really, like, stop for a second, go back to the 90s. Like, you know, I mean, he's in, you know, like a poor white kid, and all of a sudden this record company is like, hey, I know that you enjoy this whole rap thing that's happening. Yeah, here's a bunch of money, but then afterwards everyone's gonna hate you. Wasn't he like flipping houses there for a while? Oh my god, remember the new metal cover of Ice Ice Baby? God, that was so bad. Metal is truth. You gotta stop, collaborate, and listen. Well, you know, I mean, I try to do all three in a fairly regular interval. Wasn't Vanilla Ice on Celebrity Rehab? It says Space Duster. I'm not sure. He seems like, you know, probably somebody who might have had their run-in with substance abuse as their career plummeted and they needed to pay the cable bill. I'm not sure. I don't want to go telling Porky Pies. Space Duster says, I kind of remember him being on there with Mini-Me from Austin Powers. Oh, Vern Troyer? I remember, was he on Celebrity Rehab? I think he was. I know that Sebastian Bach from Skid Row was on there. Or was that like one of those weight loss shows? I can't remember. You know, Metal is Truth, it's funny, speaking of background dancers, do you know that that's how Tupac got his start, was as a background dancer for the Digital Underground? Like, his job was to be a background dancer during the Humpty Dance, pretty much. God damn, it's hot. We don't have air conditioning here. It's hilarious seeing like line upon line upon line of Germans like in line just buying a fan. Like, fans are worth their weight in gold. I'm amazed that no one's tried to break in here. Oh, excuse me, and rob me of mine. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to click the link in the chat box. It's not left versus right, it's up versus down. You can agree or you can debate. Feel free to join in and give me your 2 cents. Metal is truth. I can't sit in the side of the AC, so I'm outside with me with the no air conditioner. I'd be taking advantage of that. Space Esther says I work in no AC. It gets hot even with fans. Yeah, that's how it was like being in the Navy. Luckily, see, I was super lucky, and they would, oh my god, the hatred I would receive. See, like the entire boat was just ridiculous. I know you're supposed to call it a ship, but I don't care. The entire boat was just ridiculous hot. And back when I was doing aviation ordnance, down in the magazines, it would get so hot, the ceilings would drip. It would just be so hot. And then when when I became a meteorologist in training, because afterwards I was going to be going to meteorology school, I got to go up and then get transferred. And they had air conditioning in there because all the computer equipment had to stay cold, to the point where we had to wear coats. And oh my god, the hatred we would receive, because like now and again they would catch us in the hallway like with our coats still on, because we were the P-way. Sorry if you're actually a sailor. And you know, they'd be like, oh, must be, the line was always, must be nice. And I'm like, hey, choose your rate, choose your fate, dog. Metal is truth. It's a boat. Well, the thing about it is, you know, submarines are boats. So, you know, but as far as, you know, if you're an actual not Joe Navy sailor, you call it the boat. But, you know, let somebody with, you know, some of that scrambled eggs on their hat, here you call it a boat. It's your ass in a sling. Whether you agree or disagree, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Feel free to click the link and join the conversation. Or feel free to continue typing in the chat box, either way. I saw a hilarious photo where it was like the order of the planets you know, here's the sun, and then there's the order of all the planets, and right in front of the closest one, just stacked right beside the sun, it just says Germany. Our pavement is lifting on the highways from the heat. It's absolutely crazy. And there's people who like been stuck. No, and they can't like go anywhere. And they just cook. There's been trains that have not been operating. Like, it's been bad. Like, to the point where they're just like, don't go outside. Metal is truth, my last MEU. I was on the captain of the ship, caught me in his chair on the bridge. Oh lord, I'm sure that didn't work out well. We're sitting in like the Chang spot. It's so funny because the Chang, you know, stands for chief engineer. And we would always play pranks on people when they first got to the boat. It's a fairly innocent hazing. You know, you tell them you need like a beaker full of steam, or you know, put them on mail buoy watch. Tell them if, you know, they miss the mail buoy, no one's gonna get their mail and everybody's gonna be very angry at them. If you're in the Suez Canal, you put them on monkey watch. That's always a fun one. But a great one is to tell them they have to find and blow the Chang. Finally, when the time comes after they've asked 30 people how to get to the Chang, he's there and he tells them what the request was. All of a sudden, your name comes up in your LPO as you're standing in the office at attention. No, Metal is truth. We had a discussion. Oh, I'm sure you did have a discussion. The the captain doesn't take too lightly of people usurping his throne. Now and again, our EXO would actually like come down and like make omelets and stuff. I think it was just because he was bored on while we were, he didn't want to sit through another briefing, so he was like, I might as well go down and you know, mix with the commoners. Not left versus right, it's up versus down. Agree or disagree, feel free to click on the link if you want to have a conversation. Metal is Truth says, I love those jokes. Yeah, it's light hazing, you know, it's building camaraderie. It's not quite like tacking on a crow where, you know, they'd put your arm around a pole and after you became a third-class petty officer, anybody would come up and fucking punch it. I genuinely actually kind of wanted that just because, you know, I wanted to be part of those old Navy traditions, as toxic as they were. Every now and again, you have to admit there are certain toxic traits that you like for example, listening to Pantera. That's probably my most toxic trait, is that I'm a Pantera fan. That, and I like my 80s action movies, and a lot of those have so much xenophobia. Oh my god. You have to tell me some stories offline. Okay, okay. Well, you know, I mean, if you're watching this and you're enjoying it, feel free to join the Discord. We got all sorts of great people in there. We're always doing something, having some kind of fun. Whether it's playing music or video games or listening to music together or watching perfectly legal and purchased copies of content. Reminds me a little bit right here, Alvin Youngblood Hart. I studied his slide technique so much. It's like total Carl Sonny Leyland vibes. On piano. Whether you agree or you disagree, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Feel free to click on the link and join the conversation. I'm so stoked to finish the first book of the series, to make it a real thing in the universe, to where the second book will be an anticipated thing and the lore will already be there. It's fun to be able to talk about Peach Bones because it's an actual, you know, real book now. And that we found some places in Mafia 3 that genuinely resemble places in the book. So that's pretty fun. We did that last night in the Discord, actually. So it looks like we have till July 2nd for them to release all of the redacted Epstein files. So them E-Man files are going to hit hard, because if Todd Blanche decides not to, the judge has demanded that they have to give an explanation as to why they left them redacted. And if it's the same explanation I've heard beforehand, which is a lot of people's lives could be ruined. Well, that's pretty based, if you ask me. What I can't stand is the gaslighting, where they're like, we can't release them because then the victims' names would be released. And it's like, motherfucker, the victims' names were unredacted. And it's actually the co-conspirators' names who are redacted. And Kash Patel got proven he was telling Porky Pies about this in Congress. I'm not sure if the FBI director can be held for perjury or not, but I find that extremely interesting. Once more, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Feel free to click on the link in the chat box if you wish to join the conversation, whether you agree or disagree. This is a topic that I feel has a confluence that meets right in the middle of the aisle where everybody agrees, because everybody is paying more for everything. And it's on purpose because it benefits corporations. I mean, ever since COVID, take a look at how much profit they've made from price gouging. Space Duster, what's your thoughts on Iran launching waves of missiles around the Middle East? Well, my thoughts are that if we wouldn't have started shit, we got the Strait of Hormuz blocked. See, the thing is they're promised the 400 billion if they quote unquote behave. But now they're like, fuck you, we're gonna get the money because they got golden AK-47s that came from your tax dollars. And even if it didn't come from your tax dollars, the war came from your tax dollars. And as far as Iran launching waves of missiles around the Middle East, they can do what the fuck they want now because they know they can control the Strait of Hormuz, which controls everybody's oil. So the JCPOA was keeping that sort of mindset at bay. But now they're like, fuck, we got all this money. We can control the Strait of Hormuz. And we have a more extreme Ayatollah. What? If you wish to join the conversation, the link's in the chat box. It's not left versus right, it's up versus down. We are being divided on purpose in order to make revenue for the top 1%. Space Duster says, it's almost like a gift to Iran, aside from the US bombing their schools. Well, and countless civilians. But yeah, definitely the schools. The thing is Donald Trump got bent over a barrel and penetrated with not even butter as lube. That's the truth of it. Because he needed to rip up the JCPOA because it had Obama's name on it. Nothing more. I mean, every excuse has started off Remember, it was about uranium. So we had Operation Midnight Hammer, in which all of the facilities were completely destroyed, so we were told. But yet, 8 to 9 months to 10 months later, we're still told the same line of bullshit. But for some reason, it always comes back to oil, shipping, and economics. I find that extremely curious. I agree, Space Duster. They says, yeah, but he didn't have to start all this, even though he ripped up the JCPOA. Well, you know, he's extremely influenced by other world leaders. And when Netanyahu found somebody who would actually take on the idea that previous presidents were like, we're not going to do this, because they actually understood how geography and topography works. And I'm sure the Bone Spurs was told that, you know, bomb them for 3 days and they'll give up because of your mighty, awesome military might. And this is coming from a veteran. Metal is truth. Obviously, the Jesus Christ power of attorney doesn't mean shit. Is that what the JCPOA stands for? I just know that the Pulp Fiction prayer didn't seem to work. So that was, I suppose, a learning experience for the Department of War. I find it interesting that they changed their name to Department of War, and then they fight one war and then lose that war. But some comedy sort of writes itself, right, gang? Space Duster, it amazes me people watched us spend 20 years losing to the Taliban and think we'll be able to exact regime change in Iran. It's comical. We see there's people who believe 100% in the illusory of truth, where as many times as Bone Spurs repeats it, then it becomes truth, because it's been repeated enough times by somebody in power. And if you choose to live in what I like to call Earth 2, then you listen to what the 1% tell you and you don't question it. Whether it's on the left or the right, because, well, CNN is no longer what would be considered any sort of left-leaning source with Ellison buying it, and then, you know, CBS with Barry Weiss. So independent journalism is now more important than ever. I really don't enjoy having to look at the lens of politics consistently through what is it that Roy Cohn influenced into that particular day. But it's the fucking wagon spoke, where Roy Cohn's right in the middle, and then you got Bone Spurs, and you got Nixon, and you got Reagan, and you got Roger Stone, and then, you know, like, you cannot help but recognize the influence that one man had on political discourse. So I genuinely feel like it's my civic duty to do the Roy Cohn podcast, because people need to start understanding how to be able to look through the smoke screen and just continually say, present your evidence. Whether you agree or disagree with a conversation, or you also want to follow the topic of what it's not left versus right, it's up versus down, feel free to click the link in the chat box and join the conversation. Metal is Truth comedy is America at the moment. You know what's actually comical is how many Europeans fallen in love with ranch to the point that we actually have ranch on the shelves because it's World Cup. It's Hellman's, mind you, it's not Hidden Valley. But ranch is ranch is ranch when you're not able to get it any other time. It's like I feel like I need to go out and fucking hoard it. But with the way that the demand for it has been, I'm terribly afraid I'll never see it again. I literally had to order a bottle of Hidden Valley, and it's quite strange because they changed the recipe to where the color looks darker, and I was a little freaked out because I was like, is this out of date? That is truth, but the smoke screen is Kool-Aid flavored. Well, smoke screens don't work on people that carry gas masks. And when you can look at somebody after a filibuster and ask them to present their evidence, that's pretty foolproof if you ask me. Oh, bring it in. There we go. This is your first time at ViperTV Live. Welcome! If you wish to get in on the conversation, feel free to click the link. The topic is, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. But also, there's a myriad of other things we've been talking about. Welcome, Cynthia. The topic is, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Whether you agree or disagree, feel free to click the link and you can join in the conversation. Also been popping off random stories. Well, if you can't participate in the conversation, feel free to just type in the chat box. That's fine. Cynthia says she has to get ready for work. Surprised to see me here. Well, this is a new thing that I've been wanting to do for a while. Now that I don't have to worry about studying, I always wanted to have a show where people can click on a link and have a conversation. And I prefer it not to be a debate show where people yell over each other. So this is our topic. that it's not left versus right, it's up versus down, whether you agree or disagree. That conversation can be had. Also got the summer haircut going on because it's so hot. I like it like this. It's a little shorter than I normally keep it, but the side of my head is certainly enjoying the breeze that I have coming from my fan. Because we don't have air conditioning in Germany. It's not something we do. Which is, in my opinion, it's not a bad thing because, I mean, this country doesn't really get hot enough regularly where we need air conditioning. But when we get these heat waves like what's happening now, it's certainly a reminder of how much you miss it. Yeah, I agree, Cynthia. Europe is baking. We're setting heat records, and so is France. It's been we got back from holiday. We got off the Autobahn before it decided it was going to start cracking and lifting, which was something I guess that happens regularly when the heat gets to the point that it is with the sort of, I don't know, maybe mixture that's used for the Autobahn. I'm not sure why it cracks and lifts. But I mean, this country's just not used to this heat. Metal is truth. I'm glad we have solar. Oh, that's cool. There's like mad solar farms everywhere in Germany. This is your first time at ViperTV Live. Welcome. During the week, I like to do gaming. And also there is a podcast that I do about Roy Cohn's influence on modern politics and modern discourse. It's your first time here, welcome. Feel free to put anything in the chat box. Join our Discord. Come hang out via Viper. If you actually want to talk with me right now, feel free to click the link. The topic is, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down, whether you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear from you. Cynthia says, see, the cycle goes sun-baked dry, fire comes next, rain then causes flood and mudslides, and the cycle starts over. Yeah, we're going to be getting some heavy storms, and then there's probably going to be some flooding because the ground is, you know, so harsh be baked that it won't just absorb the water, it'll just bounce right off. The Tsar actually flooded a couple years ago pretty well. I remember I was doing one of our Dive Bar of Democracy chat shows from back in the day. And we were dealing with internet outage because everything was just crazy because of the flooding. Tiki Tony says, yes, the flooded desert from this winter is now covered in sagebrush and tumbleweed. Actually, speaking of California, I just recently learned that Lancaster, California is where Frank Zappa went to school and grew up. Pretty cool. I didn't know that. Tiki Tony says there's water in that ground somewhere. Say that it's oil, and somebody will be there to show up and deliver some freedom in like about a day or two. Cynthia says, but the water might be owned by Saudis. Well, I mean, between... See, the funny thing is, you know, the whole, like, with China buying up farmland, is that was always, like, you know, a huge talking point for the legacy media. Especially on the conservative side, but then the moment that... the wealthy make land deals that are just a complete contradiction of everything that they've said. All of a sudden it's crickets. Just another example of how they try to play the left versus the right over the fact that it's up versus down, because they're gonna squeeze every last drop from us if they can get. Metal is truth, yeah. Tell them that it's oil, and they'll bring those freedom trucks right over. Boy, howdy, you can smell that freedom. They're gonna have some of those Homelander-style freedom camps. The topic is, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. If you agree or disagree, feel free to click on the link in the chat if you want to join the conversation. There you go. That's a nice ending. Cynthia says Arizona sold their aquifer to Saudi Arabia to grow alfalfa for feed. It drained so much water, residents on wells went dry, and a moratorium on building took place. That was during Bone Spur's last regime. Now the new Arizona governor voided that deal. Well, you know, it pays to have a Democrat running things as opposed to, you know, didn't Joe Arpaio get a fucking pardon? Metalist Truth says I've never felt more patriotic than I do today. Oh man. Yep, those freedom trucks, any moment now. The link isn't live on Twitch. Oh, really? Is that the case? Thank you for telling me that. I'll get that fixed in one moment. Alright, let's see if that helps things. See here, give me a moment. I'm gonna stop streaming for a second and I'll come right back.